Where does your favorite NFL team's offense rank entering 2022? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL rankings video. In this video, ranking every NFL offense from the worst offense in the NFL, number 32, to the best offense in the NFL, number 1. Just before we get started, now is the time, guys, to sign up for Patreon if you're not already a BLV patron. Just giving you a heads up for August. There's going to be a lot of great content on there, including my fantasy guide for fantasy football, my top 100 players entering the 2022 NFL season, and of course, the NFL betting content. So all that and more, including exclusive previews on Patreon. Make sure to check it out. Link is in the description. Now, let's rank every NFL offense. The worst offense in the NFL entering 2022. I don't think it's clear and obvious, but my choice is the Chicago Bears at number 32. And the reason my choice is the Chicago Bears is because there's a lot of question marks and a severe lack of talent within this offense. First, you have a new coaching staff, a new offensive coaching staff that I will say couldn't be any worse than what they had previously, but I don't really see it being much better either. The offensive line has to be the worst in the NFL currently. They have a bunch of retreads, a bunch of veterans off the street, and younger players who simply cannot play. Yes, I like Montgomery and Herbert, and I love Darnell Mooney, but I'm just not sure Justin Fields is going to be able to elevate this offense on a weekly basis. There's just nothing at wide receiver beyond Darnell Mooney, and Cole Kmet's okay, but he's not a huge difference maker. I just don't see this unit, with how bad they will be on the offensive line, being able to be good at passing or running the football. The second worst offense in the NFL, the number 31 offense in the NFL, is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are at number 31, a severe drop from last season due to the fact that they now have a new quarterback. Now, it's not just that they lost Russell Wilson, but it's what they're supposedly replacing Russell Wilson with, which is rather Geno Smith or Drew Lock. And either way, that's a backup caliber quarterback. That is not a starting caliber quarterback. Not only are you replacing Russell Wilson with a backup, but you're also replacing an offensive line. Like Dwayne Brown is gone, who was their best offensive lineman for the last few years. They have new tackles, which are an absolute disaster. And although I don't really mind anything else on the offense, I just feel like the combination of one of the worst schemes in the NFL, one of the worst tackle situations in the NFL, and one of the worst quarterback situations in the NFL, that's three of the most important aspects of an offense. So as much as I like the running backs and the duo of receivers and even Noah Fant, I can't really rank them much higher than the second worst offense in the NFL. The third worst offense in the NFL, the number 30 offense in the league, is the Houston Texans. You could certainly argue that from a talent perspective, the Texans belong in last, but I actually believe that the Texans offense is being slightly slept on entering 2022. And it all begins with their front, their offensive line. I think their offensive line is pretty underrated, and they have good caliber players, at least solid NFL starters, across the offensive line. Not only do they have that, but they have a number 1 receiver in Brandon Cooks, who just seemingly does not age and just continues to play very, very well and produces week in and week out. They also have an up-and-coming, potentially breakout receiver in somebody like Nico Collins, and a tight end who I like a lot in Brevin Jordan. Running back situation is probably the worst, but you add a rookie to the mix along with veterans like Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead, and they should be just fine at the running back position. I feel like they're just going to surprise people. Davis Mills is going to surprise people. I feel like he can efficiently be a nice pocket passer in this offense. So the Texans are at number 30. The number 29 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are number 29 for 2 reasons. Those 2 reasons include Arthur Smith with his weird play calling last year and the quarterback position not being able to overcome a bad offensive line. So last year, Atlanta was still a decent enough offense due to the fact that Matt Ryan could manage the pocket, get rid of the football, and keep the ball away from the defense, essentially. Marcus Mariota, I'm not so sure he'll be able to effectively work the pocket and get rid of the football at such a high rate as the borderline Hall of Fame Matt Ryan. So that's a problem for me. I like Drake London. Remember, they didn't really have Calvin Ridley last year, but they did have Russell Gage, and they did have Cordell Patterson. So a lot of these elements are similar, but I like Drake London a lot. I think he's going to be a instant day one wide receiver one for this team. I think Kyle Pitts in his second year will be improved. So I see a couple weapons. Patterson is a dimension to this offense that's tricky to figure out. I also believe that the offense will be a little bit better running the ball this year because Arthur Smith's coaching should improve that. But I'm a little bit concerned about his play calling. He was too conservative last year in terms of early down play calling. I am intrigued to see how Marcus Mariota is used as an athlete in the offense, so they can do quite a few things that intrigue me here, but I just don't think it's going to overall lead to an effective, great offense for the Atlanta Falcons. The number 28 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are at number 28 despite having really good skill position players. I like Deontay Johnson. I like Chase Claypool a bit. I think he might be a little bit overrated. I think George Pickens has a lot of potential. Even somebody like Calvin Austin has a lot of potential to add something, speed, quickness, a dimension to this offense after the catch. Najee Harris is a very good running back in all facets of the game. And I even like the tight end. But there's two big issues, really three big issues, and they're the three biggest problems you could possibly have in an offense. The scheme is very, very vanilla and very basic, and every defense I feel like has a good feel for it at this point. That's all up to Matt Canada to change things and adapt post Ben Roethlisberger. We will see. The offensive line is still one of the worst in the NFL, and they're not good at run blocking or pass blocking. The biggest issue is, despite bringing in Mitchell Trubisky, who has a stronger arm, he's more talented than an old Ben Roethlisberger is much smarter. He got rid of the football, he played effective, efficient football, and even though he was kind of erratic and he didn't really want to get hit, that was kind of to the betterment of the offense because he got rid of the ball and saved his offensive line and saved negative plays. I'm a little bit concerned about Mitch Trubisky with his slower clock to be able to get rid of the ball and make plays for this offense. I'm also concerned about them running the ball at a consistent rate. If they want to run the ball more, I just don't think it's going to be effective or efficient. So the Steelers are just not one of my favorite offenses this year. The number 27 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Jacksonville Jags. What I like about Jacksonville entering 2022 is the potential that Trevor Lawrence possesses. And in listening to people that I really respect who are close to that situation, it appears that Trevor Lawrence has fixed some of the mechanical flaws that I thought he had in year one and even entering the NFL. And if that's the case, he could really up his game. Not only that, but I really respect Doug Peterson as a Super Bowl winning coach. I think Mike McCoy knows what he's doing generally on offense. So that mix of minds and also work ethic from Trevor Lawrence's perspective is a great thing. I also think the vibes are better surrounding the Jacksonville offense. Travis Etienne is healthy. He could be a dynamic playmaker for them at running back. James Robinson should be back at some point. Maybe not the same player, but he'll be at least a solid RB2. You have Christian Kirk, who I think is better than any receiver they had last year, so that's nice. And Evan Ingram is a dangerous playmaker at tight end, although he is inconsistent. My problem is I don't see a ton of upper echelon talent here. I feel like the offensive line still needs a lot of work, especially at tackle, and they're inconsistent there. Unless Travis Etienne is some difference-making, dangerous running back, I don't see anybody on this offense that is just special. So it's a lot of okay with a quarterback that needs to be able to take a step forward. So there's a lot of question marks. My number 26 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Tennessee Titans. Yes, the Tennessee Titans. I know that's slightly shocking and surprising, but the Tennessee Titans are not a good offense, especially entering this season. They weren't very good last year. You lose A.J. Brown. You try to replace him with a first-round pick in Treylon Burks, who I'm not sure what we're going to get from him in year one, and Robert Woods, who's coming off an ACL. I just don't know what we're going to get in the passing game from this team, and I feel like the running game is going to be worse and less efficient because the offensive line is just not as good. I mean, the offensive line has been one of the most powerful, downhill, great rushing attack offensive lines in football for the last 3 or 4 years, and I just don't see the same talent. You know, you lose somebody like Roger Saffold, who I think is a huge piece to that, and I just don't feel like this offense is going to be clicking on all cylinders the way it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't like the scheme. I feel like they have one of the worst offensive coordinators in football, and I feel like Tannehill's about to kind of hit a wall in his career where he hit a peak and he's coming down, and I just see the Titans struggling on offense this year. The number 25 NFL offense entering 2022 is the New York Jets. And yes, the New York Jets are largely based off potential, but if it was based off their true potential, they'd be a lot higher because when you look at the talent, it's significant. It's there. You look at running back Breece Hall is a home run hitter who can also catch the football. Michael Carter is a very nice number 2. The offensive line is probably the most underrated unit in the NFL with good tackle duo, strong guard duo, and one of the top 10 centers in the NFL. They have Zach Wilson, a quarterback that I feel could take a massive jump due to the support on the offensive line, due to the support at receiver. Adding Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis will be back. His boy Braxton Berrios will be back in the lineup. And then on top of that, you got Elijah Moore, who could be the biggest breakout of them all. The tight end room is improved as well with Uzoma and then also Conklin. So there's so much to like here for the New York Jets. The only weakness or flaw that I potentially see here hindering this unit is Zach Wilson not being able to take a step due to the coaching under Mike LaFleur. If he can be on his game as a play caller, this offense could be a lot better than this ranking. The number 24 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Washington Commanders. And I understand the Washington Commanders are not a very electric unit. Nobody really wants to talk about them this year. But I feel like their offense did get better this offseason. Their offensive line has quietly been very, very solid over the last few years. And I expect it to be once again. Not only did they have a nice starting 5, but they also have quality depth that I respect. Logan Thomas eventually should come back at tight end. Jahan Dotson was added to be a slot receiver for this offense. I think he'll be dynamic there in his rookie season. Terry McLaurin is an awesome wide receiver 1. And if Curtis Samuel can make something out of this opportunity, he can fly for sure. He can run, and maybe he's not the true solution as a wide receiver 2, but if Dotson is as good as they think, a first round pick, then he'll just fill in as the wide receiver 3, and that'll be perfectly fine. Antonio Gibson can play. They've got plenty of depth at running back. I feel like they've got plenty to work with here. It's just the Carson Wentz factor, kind of a middle of the road scheme. I feel like they're just an average vanilla offense. They'll have their games. They'll have some bad games. I just see it kind of being inconsistent, but if Wentz can just be okay, I feel like they're at least a top 25 offense in the NFL. The number 23 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Carolina Panthers, led by Baker Mayfield. Now, this unit would be a lot lower if it were Sam Darnold, but Baker Mayfield gives me a little bit of hope. I do respect Baker Mayfield in terms of his leadership, in terms of his passion for the game, and I do think he's an underrated passer of the football, especially when it comes to drop back pass and his accuracy. I am intrigued to see how they utilize him in this offense, but I do think it will be easy for him if Ben McAdoo just utilizes him to get the ball in the hands of playmakers like Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. They've got plenty to work with. Even Marshall and Higgins can play. I think they like their tight end situation. I'm not quite sure. And the offensive line will be the biggest improvement here. Not only do you have Christian McCaffrey back, who's one of the most dynamic weapons in football all around, but an offensive line that adds a new center in Bradley Bozeman, that gets better at guard in Austin Corbett from the Rams, and they draft a left tackle in Ekwonu. So all the way around, this offense is better at 2 of the most important positions, and also potentially offensive coordinator. We will see. Ben McAdoo's not my favorite, but we'll see what he can do with Baker Mayfield. The number 22 NFL offense is the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, I do feel many people are saying they're the sleeper offense of the NFL. That could potentially be true. I definitely see the talent. The offensive line's a top 5 unit in my opinion, with potentially a dominant tackle duo, and Frank Ragnow is back at center. DeAndre Swift, this could be his breakout season, a running back that could rush for 1,000 yards, could catch 70 balls. That's the type of talent he possesses and can be worked around as an Alvin Kamara type of hybrid receiver running back. They have TJ Hawkinson, who's a very good tight end, maybe not elite, but very, very good and capable. And they have DJ Chark, who I think is being extremely slept on as a potential X receiver for them on the outside, who they can move around, who they can use his vertical speed to stretch defenses, opening it up for Swift, Hawkinson, and St. Brown, who's a target machine. Once they get Jameson Williams back, this could be a very dynamic offense, but until then, I do feel like they'll be a little bit less than expectations, because I think Jameson Williams is a huge part of this puzzle, and if they can get him back, I think it'll be huge. The only real reason I don't fully believe in the offense is Jared Goff. I just feel like he holds them back because he's so conservative. If he opens himself up to be more just aggressive overall and try to make more throws and understand that his team is not going to win unless he does so, then, you know, maybe they could be better than this. But I feel like if he just continues to play dink and dunk football, they're not going to be as good as they could be. The number 21 NFL offense entering 2022 is the New York Giants. The New York Giants are my number 21 offense, and I see a ton of potential here for this offense. Not only do I feel like people are sleeping on Daniel Jones entering this season, but I do really think their offensive line is going to be quality this year. I love Evan Neal, like one of my favorite offensive line prospects I've ever seen. And Andrew Thomas is getting better and better and better. They improved the inside with Glowinski, Feliciano. So they've got players there that have been quality in the NFL. They also brought in one of the greatest offensive minds in football and schemers from offenses like Kansas City and Buffalo. So we know that they know what they're doing. Saquon Barkley appears to be fully healthy, and when he's on his game, he's probably the biggest difference-making running back in the NFL because of the explosive plays he can offer. The wide receiver position has a yak machine in Kadarius Toney, who could be a breakout player, and Wan'Dale Robinson is somebody I would watch out for. I would suggest him as a late round fantasy target, looking really good in camp. Kenny Golladay is a jump ball specialist, and if he can make some plays and stay healthy, we know what he can do. So the Giants have plenty of pieces here, and I feel like with a new offense and a scheme that's going to utilize their playmakers to their best, because they certainly have talent, it will be much better than it was a year ago. My number 20 NFL offense entering 2022 is the New Orleans Saints offense, led by Jameis Winston and post Sean Payton. This is a new era for the Saints offense, and I'm intrigued to see how much stays the same, how much changes, and how Jameis Winston plays. How will he play? How erratic will he be? How consistent can he be? We've seen Jameis be really good. We've seen Jameis be really bad, and that's overall what I feel like the Saints are going to be. Inconsistent. They're going to have great weeks. I feel like the talent, Michael Thomas being there, looks like they're going to have Alvin Kamara for the whole year as long as he's not suspended, but it looks like that's going to be held off for a while. Jarvis Landry, I think, is just a name at this point. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think he's going to do much, but as a wide receiver 3, he's fine, whatever. Chris Olave is expected to be that wide receiver 2 to complement Michael Thomas, especially the guy that could go vertical and be the speed element to the offense. We'll see what they have at tight end. I'm not so sure. And the offensive line, I don't think is as good as it's been in the past, but it should still be solid. So they have the dimensions to run the ball, pass the ball. I just feel like it's going to be overall inconsistent. And if they do call plays the way they did last year, I do think they'll hold themselves back a little bit because they believe in their defense so strongly. They typically play too conservative for my liking, which does also hold back their offensive potential. So I have the Saints at number 20. The number 19 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins made significant strides this offseason to help improve this offense. Starting with the coach. You hire an offensive coach, you kick out a defensive coach, and although I feel like it's a downgrade from an overall head coach standpoint, it should be an upgrade in terms of offensive philosophy and offensive play calling, as Mike McDaniel has been tied to the hip of Kyle Shanahan for numerous seasons now, so he should have a good idea how to get the most out of a less than stellar talent at quarterback, which is what I believe Tua is. Tyreek Hill is probably the most dangerous player in football still, which will help any offense. Jalen Waddle is one of the fastest receivers and great yak player at wide receiver 2. He is a wide receiver 1 himself. Mike Gesicki is somebody that I could see being utilized less, but he's still a good player nonetheless. Cedric Wilson can play. And Chase Edmonds is a dynamic threat out of the backfield as a receiver, but I'm not sure how great he is as a rusher, so I want to see what they get out of Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel running the football as well. The offensive line is still a question mark, but it should be better than it was a year ago, especially if Teron Armstead can stay healthy. So this is an offense that I feel like is going to be very kind of smoke and mirrors, very manufactured because they have a less than stellar talent at quarterback. But I think with what they utilize here, they should be pretty effective. So there's going to be games where they go off and everything's hitting on all cylinders schematically, but there's also going to be games where the scheme can't overcome the less than stellar offensive line, running back talent, or quarterback. So I feel like they could be better than this. They could also be worse than this. I feel like this is a perfect ranking for me. The number 18 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Cleveland Browns. This is a very tricky ranking here because if it's Jacoby Brissett for the entire season, we still don't really know what Deshaun Watson's going to get. I mean, we see it's 6 games right now, but the NFL is appealing this. It could be more. So if Jacoby Brissett's there the whole season, they're like a bottom 7 offense, despite having a really strong offensive line and run game and scheme. But the Deshaun Watson factor opens it up to being a top 15 unit due to just him being very good at quarterback. So I just feel like generally it's not a great offense like the way that people think of it, how it could be with Deshaun Watson, just because the passing game, the drop back passing game from a play calling perspective isn't great. On top of that, you don't have a lot of weapons. I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of like a one-trick pony. He's almost like the Valdez-Scantling of the Cleveland Browns. Schwartz is just a speed guy as well. I don't know what else they have at receiver outside of Amari Cooper, who is somewhat inconsistent, who I'd rather have as my wide receiver 2 than 1, to be honest with you. I do like what David Njoku could offer here, but I don't know if he's ready to be a breakout tight end, like a go-to target. I feel like he's just a well-rounded player. The run game's really nice, but now we're hearing Kareem Hunt isn't so satisfied with his contract. Could he be a trade candidate? So there's just a lot that bugs me and a lot unknown. That's why they're at 18. My number 17 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Baltimore Ravens offense. We've seen the Ravens offense be a lot better than this in the past. Under Lamar Jackson, despite not having a lot of talent around him, they were one of the best offenses in the league a couple years ago. But it's the questions in terms of the passing game, not just from Lamar's perspective, where I feel like he's gotten better and better and better every year of his career, but really just the receiver depth chart. I mean, this is probably the worst receiver depth chart in the NFL, behind Rashad Bateman, who's still a question mark in his own right. Prochet, like Wallace, Duvernay, who are these people? I understand this is largely a run-heavy offense, but again, Edwards and Dobbins are coming off of injuries. The offensive line is pretty good and is a lot better than last year, getting Ronnie Stanley back, getting Morgan Moses in free agency, drafting Tyler Linderbaum. I love all of those additions, and Lamar being healthy and with a chip on his shoulder should be a great thing. I'm just not certain about the play calling from the passing game perspective. I'm not certain about the receiving core. So all of those things kind of hold them back from being in the top 15, but I do think there'll be a dynamic offense in certain games due to how well they could run the ball. Mark Andrews is a beast too. The number 16 NFL offense is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are at number 16 because they have a ton of talent here. And despite the question mark that exists at quarterback with Jalen Hurts, I feel like they can overcome it like last year due to having a strong philosophy to run the football first and then having great talents to get open. You've got Devontae Smith, who's a burner, vertical threat. You have AJ Brown, who's a yak beast and a big body and a true alpha. And you have Dallas Goedert, who's a super underrated, like on the borderline of elite tight ends. So you've got all those pieces on top of Quez Watkins' speed to play in the screen game and vertically. You've got Miles Sanders and the backfield, who they've been largely efficient. And it all really is due to the fact that this offensive line should be the most dominant in the NFL. And that's going to set up Jalen Hurts for success, the running game for success, the play calling for success. And if AJ Brown can stay on the field, stay healthy, and be the dynamic guy that they paid him to be, this offense could be a lot better than this ranking, but it all really hinges on the consistency and the accuracy of one Jalen Hurts. The number 15 NFL offense entering 2022 is an offense that was super dynamic last year, but lost a ton of pieces. That is the Dallas Cowboys. And I understand Cowboys fans are not going to be happy with me here due to how good and effective the Cowboys were, especially in the first half of the season on offense. But they lost so many good pieces. They lost a very good right tackle. They lost a very good receiver in Amari Cooper. They lost Cedric Wilson, who is under the radar awesome as their wide receiver 3. Not only that, but Michael Gallup is hurt entering the year. And they lost Connor Williams at left guard. They had to replace him with a first-round pick. There's a lot of question marks entering the year. And despite them having still the same running backs, still CeeDee Lamb, still Dalton Schultz, still Dak Prescott, and Kellen Moore, I just have questions about how dynamic they can be. I feel like they're going to be more average and inconsistent due to the targets clearly being identifiable for defenses. They're going to target CeeDee Lamb. They're going to target Dalton Schultz. They're going to give the ball to their running backs. And that's basically their offense. They're not going to have that dynamic ability to spread the field, throw to Gallup, throw to Cooper, throw to Lamb, be able to pick their matchups the way they were before, which is going to put more stress on the scheme and put more stress on the offensive line. So the Cowboys are still good and could be better than this, but I just have a lot of questions. The number 14 NFL offense entering 2022 is the New England Patriots. And I know a lot of people are going to say like this is bias and whatever, but I'd like for you guys to look up where the Patriots finished last year offensively in all metrics, including advanced statistics. The Patriots were a top 10 offense last year, and they only got better this offseason, in my opinion. Now, they did lose Josh McDaniels, which I have so much respect for Josh McDaniels. The play calling is certainly questioned, and they are kind of changing the scheme in terms of they're shifting more towards a zone rushing attack, more towards Kyle Shanahan philosophies, and that could take some time, but the talent should be better. Starting at quarterback, Mac Jones in year 2 should just be a better player. He's physically looking better. He's probably going to be more experienced and smarter. He's already one of the better pocket manipulators and pocket passers accuracy-wise in football. And I do feel adding a jump ball receiver like Devontae Parker, who can be an alpha target at his best, Kendrick Bourne in the second year of his system, Nelson Aguilar second year system, Jonnu Smith second year in the system, Hunter Henry second year with the Patriots. I mean, all these guys have more rapport with Mac Jones, more rapport with the team, more rapport with what they're asking him to do. On top of that, you add Tyquan Thornton's speed from the draft. He's having a promising training camp. And they have an awesome running back duo with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. And they've been a top 5 rushing attack over the last couple of years. So the Patriots can attack you in a variety of ways. They can attack you through their tight ends, their receivers, through spread packages, through I formations. They can just do a lot of different things, which is what made them effective last year, despite having a rookie quarterback and kind of an average supporting cast. But this year, the supporting cast is better, the quarterback will be better, and I expect their offensive line to dominate as it does. So the Patriots, I just feel like are generally slept on this side of the ball, and actually should be the better side of the ball for them this year. The number 13 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are a very tricky offense to rank due to the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for 6 games, and there is slight worry about Marquise Brown's hamstring, but I'm not too worried about that. That's early training camp stuff. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins, when he's in there, this is a top 10 offense, so I'm going to let you know that right now, Cardinals fans. I still believe your offense is top 10 when Hopkins is in there because I love the dimensions that you offer with Hopkins, Marquise Brown in the slot, taking over the Christian Kirk role as a vertical threat, who's better in that role. Zach Ertz for a full season, James Conner for another season. You know, you've got all the pieces, Rondale Moore in year 2. Like, I feel like all of those elements are there, but what keeps them at 13 is this offense was a lot worse without DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not sure what we have in Rondale Moore. I'm not sure James Conner will be the same player. I'm not sure if Zach Ertz will regress because he's so old. And the offensive line is also old. So there's just questions. And there's also friction with Kyler Murray. So none of those things help. So it's an offense that has high upside, but also I think a lower floor than people realize. The number 12 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson. It's been a while since I've put the Broncos offense this high, probably forever. Like, I don't remember the last time since Peyton Manning was there, but the Denver Broncos should possess a pretty good offense. Maybe not great, and definitely takes a hit post Tim Patrick because I like him a lot. I actually thought he could have been their best receiver this year, but now you're expecting Russell Wilson to come in. And I do believe that Hackett is a good play caller, and I think he's going to be the best play caller that Russ has had in a while. I also think their offensive line is the best offensive line that Russ has had in a while. I like Javonte Williams a lot. I also have a lot of respect for Melvin Gordon. I think that their receiving core, though, is a little bit overrated. I'm a big fan of what KJ Hamler could offer as a vertical dimension and threat, but Cortland Sutton doesn't separate much, so he's going to have to rely on Russell Wilson's great accuracy down the field. And Jerry Jeudy, I just feel like is generally overrated because of his college career. So I feel like there's a lot of elements that I like. Like, there's not a lot of phenomenal elite. There's no DK Metcalf. There's not even a Tyler Lockett here. But the improvement in terms of the scheme, probably a little bit of improvement from the offensive line, more consistency from depth of the receiving core. I think that helps Russ, and I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I feel like this is a top 12-ish offense this year and could even be top 10. My number 11 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Indianapolis Colts under Frank Reich and with Matt Ryan. I really like the Colts offense. I feel like a lot of what they're going to be great at is because of how smart Matt Ryan and Frank Reich are. I feel like the combination of having a great wizard play caller that I really believe Frank Reich is, if you watch the Colts over the years, including Matt Ryan's ability to play at the line of scrimmage, read things, make reads, post-snap, pre-snap, and be able to set up his offense in the perfect manner. I think that's going to really help the Colts this year post Carson Wentz. They have a very good offensive line when it comes to running the ball. Jonathan Taylor's the best running back, in my opinion, in football, and Nyheim Hines is a dimension out of the backfield. You've got guys stepping up like Ali Cox, potentially Paris Campbell, potentially the rookie Alec Pierce. I feel like this could be the best receiving core they've had in a few years as well. And then Michael Pittman should be a true alpha this year. I expect him to take a big jump. So the Colts is an offense that doesn't appear to be great on paper, but when you account for the quarterback, when you account for the scheme, how good they are at running the ball, all those things lead them to a top 12 unit. Entering the top 10 offenses in the NFL, entering 2022, I simply could not keep Aaron Rodgers outside of the top 10 because he's Aaron Rodgers. Not only that, but Matt LaFleur has proven to be a very nice play caller for the Green Bay Packers, and with Aaron Rodgers, he just knows how to get the most out of Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers has been at his best the last couple of years, really, truly, at least mentally. Maybe not physically, back in the 2011, 2014 range of things, but he's still really good and still one of the best in the game. So there's that. You also have arguably the best duo of running backs in football, which if they are still an elite offense, it will be due to the fact that these running backs are just so difficult to handle because they're so diverse and different. AJ Dillon's a monster, and Aaron Jones is a breakaway player. They're also good as receivers, and that will help them. The receiving core is a huge question mark, but they've got plenty of guys that they could throw in, and Rodgers could make work well enough for me to still put them in the top 10, including Robert Tonyan, who should be back. The offensive line, I think, is a little bit overrated and could see a huge problem if David Bakhtiari is down for any sort of period of time. I'm kind of becoming concerned about him. I want to see Christian Watson have a big year, but he's hurt right now in training camp. It does appear that Dobbs is making good strides as a rookie and that they really like Allen Lazard and that Sammy Watkins could bring something and Randall Cobb, but I just don't see a ton of upper echelon talent supporting Rodgers at the skill positions for me to be overly excited to put them back in the top 5. But because they have Rodgers, they have LaFleur, they have a strong running game and offensive line, that will be good enough for them to be in the top 10. The number 9 NFL offense entering 2022 is the San Francisco 49ers with the addition of Trey Lance and moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Trey Lance is a huge question here, but the Niners with Shanahan are basically a top 10 offense no matter what they get out of the quarterback position, and this is kind of like I just gave the respect for Aaron Rodgers. I'm giving the respect to the best play caller in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan, so both of these guys are in my top 10 basically no matter what they have, and when you look at what the Niners have, it's pretty impressive. I mean, you've got the best weapon in the NFL, arguably, and Deebo Samuel, other than maybe Tyreek Hill. And then you've got George Kittle, who's the best, most well-rounded tight end in football. And you have a pretty darn good number 2 receiver in Brandon Ayuk, who could have his best season ever this year. I do think he will have his best season ever, and I feel like he'll be a better player with Trey Lance because he's a vertical player. And then on top of that, Juwan Jennings can play as the wide receiver 3, I feel like. And the offensive line's maybe a little bit more questionable than entering last year due to no Alex Mack and some new players that we don't really know, but Trent Williams is still a monster. I think Mike McGlinchey coming back will be big, and I do feel like they know what they're doing generally when it comes to replacing offensive line talent. And Elijah Mitchell is slept on a little bit at running back. So if Trey Lance can just play a little bit, they're going to be a top 12, top 10 offense. And if he can play a lot, this will be a top 5 offense. So the Niners being at number 9 is pretty much just the respect card for Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Shanahan, and all the pieces they possess. My number 8 offense in the NFL entering 2022 is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings offense should take a major stride forward this season due to the fact that they're just generally going to play 2022 NFL football on offense. Like for the past 4 or 5 years under Zimmer, they've been playing like they play in 2007. You know what I mean? Like they had Adrian Peterson and all that stuff. Like that's not how you play offense. You don't run the ball and then only throw on 3rd down. And if you do throw on early downs, it's a play action play. Like this offense is going to be so much better just due to the fact that they're going to be more modern, they're going to be more open, they're going to be more spread. I feel like they're going to play a lot of 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. And in that personnel, they're very dynamic. Dalvin Cook at running back, of course. Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league. Adam Thielen, a great receiver too. KJ Osborne, love a lot. And Irv Smith at tight end, who's back. The offensive line, I think, is the best it's been in a few years, especially if Christian Darrisaw can be a breakout left tackle and protect Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is just generally disrespected for how accurate he is as a passer and how efficient he is, really. So this offense will be really, really sound, and I feel like it's going to be electric, more efficient than it's been in years, due to the fact that they'll be just playing under an offensive coach, and it's really that simple, guys. The number 7 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers were a top 5 offense on paper last year, but I will say that the Chargers don't feel like a top 3, top 5 offense last year or even entering the season. And there's a couple of reasons. The play calling is somewhat vanilla and kind of inconsistent. The offensive line sometimes can be bad, and they do tend to have spike weeks where they're sometimes really good and sometimes really bad. Like they had really bad games against the Patriots, the Ravens. There's matchups that they're really bad against, and true great elite offenses don't have those games. But there's also games where Justin Herbert is just ridiculous. So most of this ranking really comes down to Justin Herbert is just special. Like he just makes so much out of nothing that it's ridiculous. So that's why there'll be a top 7 unit no matter what. He's just so good. Keenan Allen should still be very, very good, even getting a little bit older as a short to intermediate route runner. Mike Williams is a big time just jump ball specialist and vertical player. And he is inconsistent due to the fact that he doesn't get open a ton, but he makes a lot of plays when the ball is in the air. Austin Eckler's a beast. I like the addition of Isaiah Spiller as a backup. Gerald Everett, I think, could give them maybe a little bit more than Jared Cook just due to youth. And the offensive line should be better due to Zion Johnson at right guard and potentially an improvement at right tackle as well. Pipkins should be the answer there. He can't be worse, right? So the offense is good, and you expect to jump through the system in year 2, but it's still not great. I still don't love their receiver depth, and really just their depth in general, I feel like is not quite on par with some of the other elite offenses in the league, but their starting unit is really good. The number 6 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Kansas City Chiefs, and this simply comes down to you've got Patrick Mahomes, who's a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the NFL today, and some would say the best. You have a awesome offensive line that can really pass protect, and you have Andy Reid, who's a offensive mastermind. Those 3 things, you're a top 10 offense. You add the best receiving tight end in football, and now you're a top 6, top 5 offense in the NFL. I don't care that you lost Tyreek Hill. You're still very good. Now, you're not number 1 because you lost Tyreek Hill. And I always believed, and I feel like we're going to see it this year, that the biggest, most important player for this offense was always Tyreek Hill because of how dangerous he is on any given play to score a touchdown. You have to pay attention to him. You have to respect him. You have to double team him. You have to play defenses, cover 2s because he's on the field. Now, Valdez-Scantling isn't the same threat. Mecole Hardman isn't the same threat with the ball in their hands or vertically, right? So although the depth of the receiving core is better, it doesn't account for the fact that you lost a generational talent. Tyreek Hill's the best deep threat we've seen since Randy Moss. You don't replace that just overnight. So I like that they added some players like Sky Moore, who I really like. I think he could have a big year. Valdez-Scantling should help stretch a defense out, and Juju should help their intermediate short game, but I just don't think it's going to be as dynamic and special as it once was. I also have concerns about their running game. Their running game just hasn't been good, and Andy Reid just doesn't like running the ball. Entering the top 5 offenses in the NFL today, at number 5, we have the Los Angeles Rams, led by Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. We do already have questions at wide receiver 3, post Odell Beckham. Will he come back? Van Jefferson's already hurt, and it doesn't look good. So I don't really know what they have at wide receiver 3. Certainly not an NFL wide receiver 3 talent. Will they go to trade for somebody? Will they sign somebody? Will they just wait till Odell comes back? That will be a question. I expect more activity from Tyler Higbee in that case, who is also coming back from an injury. But the offensive line is also a concern to me. I like the offensive line. I don't love it. Obviously losing a borderline Hall of Fame left tackle in Andrew Whitworth, losing a very solid guard in Austin Corbett. Those are things that you have to replace. I do think Noteboom will be fine, and I do think the offensive line overall will still be fine. I just don't think they'll be great the way they were, especially the last half of last year. Cam Akers should be better than what they had at running back last year, but they don't quite have the depth they had. Sony was a nice piece for them. And then wide receiving core, Cooper Kupp's still amazing. He's probably the best receiver in the league. And Allen Robinson should be a really nice dimension, like basically having Odell from the start of the year. Last year is what Allen Robinson, I believe, will be. So that's a really nice 1-2 threat. I just feel like the depth isn't the same. The offensive line isn't the same, but Stafford potentially being in the system for another year could help them as well. He also is hurt. So there's some questions about them right now, but I do really like what they offer. And of course, a great scheme, a great quarterback, a balanced attack. The number 4 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe the Raiders are going to be one of the elite offenses in the NFL, and it's for a multitude of reasons. You begin with Derek Carr playing his best football that I've seen him play in his career over the last couple of years, elevating everybody around him, no matter who is around him, and a lot of times it's been subpar talents. You've seen Derek Carr elevate guys like Nelson Aguilar and Zay Jones, and these receivers who are fine, but they're not special, right? Hunter Renfrow is an absolute machine out of the slot position, and he's now in the Wes Welker, Julian Edelman offense, so that's nice. Speaking of the offense, Josh McDaniels is one of the best play callers in football still, and schemers, and especially when it comes to balance. He's not only great as a pass game player, but he is so underrated in terms of run game. And you already saw that in the Hall of Fame game, what he's able to do with the different dimensions of power running. And I feel like they're going to be so much better running the ball this year with all the different running backs they have. The offensive line should benefit from that due to the play action, and that will help protect Derek Carr and put him in better situations to succeed. Darren Waller, if he's healthy, is just unstoppable. Like, you can't cover him with one person. There's only like 2 people in the league can do that. And Davante Adams, you have to double team. So there's so many different elements to this offense that demand respect. I mean, you can't really single up any of their 3-headed monster. I mean, Renfro basically can't be covered one-on-one within 5 yards. Davante Adams is the most double-teamed receiver in the NFL. And Darren Waller is like a freak. So like, it's just really hard to defend this team. And with what McDaniels can do schematically, how he can spread you out, how he can play power football with Jakob Johnson, it's just going to be really hard for any defense to stop them. The number 3 NFL offense is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are at number 3 because of basically one guy, and that's Josh Allen. Josh Allen is an absolute beast and the biggest one-man show in the NFL, and for me, the best quarterback entering 2022. He can do so much simply by himself through his pure talent that he doesn't need a lot around him. But when you look at what's around him, it's an improvement on last year. I feel like you have Stephon Diggs, who's a top 10 receiver, an elite talent who can catch, 7 to 10 passes every single game. You have Gabe Davis, who's just ready to break out. And you have Jamison Crowder, Isaiah McKenzie filling the slot role as totally different players, really. Crowder's kind of more similar to a Cole Beasley, kind of the technician, veteran player, and McKenzie's kind of a speed player that can threaten defenses with slower defensive backs. You also have maybe an added layer of depth with OJ Howard at tight end. I'm not counting on it, but it's better than last year. Dawson Knox could take a step forward as well. The offensive line should be better with Roger Saffold added to it. And the running back position should be better with James Cook. It at least adds more speed. So, and a receiving ability they didn't have. So I feel like this is a really awesome offense. My concerns are the running game isn't great. The offensive line is, it's okay. It's not great. So there's things that I wish were better about it, but because they've been so good over the years and they're so explosive when they're on, they're basically unstoppable. I mean, the Patriots couldn't make them punt. So that's why they're at number 3. The number 2 NFL offense entering 2022 is the Cincinnati Bengals. You could argue that they're the best offense in the NFL due to what they can do in terms of explosiveness, in terms of play-by-play efficiency, through throwing to so many different great targets, and through balance, where they can run the ball with Joe Mixon, who's an elite running back. I think their biggest improvement here, because you got to remember, they were not a great offense last year in the regular season. You have to look at the stats, but they were actually kind of underwhelming in a lot of areas, and that was due to the offensive line being bad. So the offensive line being a lot better, I feel like they're going to be more consistent, and I feel like that's going to elevate them to a truly elite, consistent offense. And that's why I have them at number 2. Joe Burrow's awesome. He's accurate. He's efficient. He's a playmaker as well. Jamar Chase is unstoppable. T. Higgins is one of the best, if not the best, number 2 in the league. Tyler Boyd's the best number 3, and I'll say that with certainty, unless Julio Jones turns into some sort of Greek god again. And then Hayden Hurst can get it done. What they ask him to do and what they ask CJ Uzoma is very similar. It's going to be similar. The offensive line's a lot better. Ted Karras can play. Alex Kappa can play. Collins, we know, can play. And I think Chris Evans is being slept on. Like, this is a really good offense. And Zach Taylor isn't an amazing schemer, but he gets the job done. So this is the number 2 offense in the NFL. The top offense in the NFL entering 2022 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's still the best offense in my opinion. It's not maybe as good as preseason last year, but I think people need to realize some things about this offense last year. Okay, they were probably the best offense last year, but Antonio Brown didn't play like every game. Like, he missed a lot of games, right? Mike Evans missed a game. Chris Godwin missed the end of the season, which made them look a lot worse than they were throughout the year. Of course, they lost Gronk. They lost pieces, right? Alex Kappa, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen got hurt for the year. So there's certainly questions. But now I'm going to throw this back on you, all right? So you have Mike Evans, good as ever, right? Good as ever. Chris Godwin, yes, will be back and looks pretty good, on track to play early in the year, but he'll take some time to get back to his true self. But Julio and Russell Gage is an element that they didn't have. And this is what I love about it, okay? So you can potentially go more towards 4 receivers, spread formations, where a lot of teams are used to playing 3 receivers who can play, right? 3 receivers that can play, like the Bengals, is actually very rare. Like usually it's 2 with 1 kind of okay guy. But if you have these 4 playing at the same time at a point in the season, they're going to be basically unstoppable because they can spread you out, and no team has 4 really good corners that can cover Julio, Gage, Godwin, and Evans at the same time, which forces you into zone defense. And when you play zone defense, you're going to get shredded by Tom Brady. No matter who the tight end is, no matter who the running back is, he'll just dink and dunk you to death, right? So the offensive line, yes, there are some concerns, but I don't think there's a lot. I mean, they still have a dominant tackle duo. They have a great guard in Shaq Mason. And Ryan Jensen wasn't a great pass blocker. He was a very good run blocker, but not a great pass blocker. Rob Hainsey, they seem to like a lot. And they did draft a replacement level guard in the second round, as well as Aaron Stinney, who replaced Alex Kappa in that Super Bowl run a couple years ago. You didn't see much change. Alex Kappa is a fine player, right? But he's not like irreplaceable. So people are exaggerating that. As well as adding somebody out of the draft like Rachaad White, could be a really dynamic running back out of the backfield as a receiver. That's kind of his strength. So if they add all those pieces together, that's still the best offense in the league with the way that other offenses have regressed, like the Chiefs, like the Packers, like the Cowboys. A lot of the top offenses from the NFL last year did get worse, even the Rams. So the Bucs are the only one that are somewhat close to what they were. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were still the best offense in the league with the ways that they can attack you and with the balance that they still possess on top of having Tom Brady. Those are my NFL offense rankings entering 2022. Let me know in the comments if I was right, if I was wrong, where I was right and where I was wrong. Don't forget to sign up for Patreon for the exclusive content coming very soon. Thank you guys so much. Peace.